Joining me now is our Washington insider, Scott Jackson, host of the team's postgame show. Scott, keeping in mind that anything can happen from the time that our viewers see this until Monday, but before we talk about the Steelers, let's enjoy the moment and go back to what was a very enjoyable Thanksgiving. Boy, the team looked good against the Cowboys.
Yeah, Bruce, you're a longtime fan of this franchise. You know how it's been on Thanksgiving against Dallas. It's been terrible. I mean, outside of 2012, they had never beaten Dallas on Thanksgiving. And I don't care that Dallas lost their two starting tackles early in the game. I don't care that Dak Prescott's hurt. I mean, I don't care about any of that because over the years, this rivalry, it's been upside down. It hasn't mattered who was better or who should win all the time. So the Washington team did exactly what they were supposed to do. And they did it with some style points there at the end, too, which was nice. So it was a very satisfying Thanksgiving. Didn't get indigestion, so I really enjoyed it myself.
Last year at this time, we were all about the then rookie Terry McLaurin. Now we're all about rookie running back Antonio Gibson. What a year he's had, but what a game he had against Dallas.
Well, two games against Dallas, he's been terrific. And again, for Ron Rivera in his first season, it's been such a topsy-turvy kind of year for him since he's been hired with all the off-the-field stuff. All the things that have gone on, but to sweep Dallas and for this young man, Antonio Gibson, who still some weeks looks like a wide receiver trying to learn how to play running back, for whatever reason against Dallas, he looks like the real deal. And that was a great performance, clutch performance. He's very good in the red zone. We've been talking about this all season long, and it was good to see them, handling the ball. And they're going to have to ride Gibson in this running game down the stretch here if they're going to be able to make a push.
But Scott, coming up Monday night, hopefully, they aren't going to be facing the Dallas defense. They're going up against the unbeaten Steelers defense. You saw Pittsburgh Wednesday night. They may have had an off night a little bit, but they're good.
Yeah, look, they didn't play their best, and they're a really good team when they're just trashing themselves after a win against a rival like the Ravens. But they weren't pleased with the way they played, and it was sloppy in a lot of ways. But defensively, they're very good. They get after the quarterback. Washington's going to have to, again, take some chances, but they're also going to have to protect Alex Smith. And Antonio Gibson's going to have to be big to keep them off balance. The loss of Bud Dupree is pretty huge for Pittsburgh. So that could help Washington a little bit and maybe the quick turnaround. But I don't think you're going to catch a complacent Steelers team by any means. Sounds like they're pretty ticked off and motivated going into this game.
All right, back to Dallas. And we can't ignore the game-winning play for Washington because it was brought in by the Cowboys screwing up that fourth quarter fake punt. I mean, come on, man. Who makes a call like that?
Well, apparently John Fossil and Mike McCarthy do because they had talked about it all week. They admitted they were waiting for the right moment. Now, is the right moment you're backed up in your own territory and got 10 yards to go and it's a 4-point game with 12 minutes left? Doesn't seem like the right moment, right? Usually those are kind of midfield or more, up a little closer to midfield kind of plays. And the way the play developed, it just took forever, for the runner to even get close to the line of scrimmage. He had two options to pass. Both of those were covered. And give Washington a lot of credit. Nate Katz, the special teams coach, he was ready for this. John Fossil has got a reputation as a gambler on special teams, and they were ready for it, and they did a great job sniffing it out.
Gotta wonder what was going through Jerry Jones's mind at that point. Of course, one play after the fake punt, Antonio Gibson goes 23 yards untouched for the touchdown, and then Montez Sweat seals the deal with a pick six. The Washington defense also did a good job.
Yeah, and we've talked about this for weeks at a time that, hey, it'd be nice if this defense could play with a lead for a consistent period of time in a game just to see what they could do. And we saw it, right? The offense got them a lead early, kept the lead at halftime, kind of kept it going. It wasn't a huge lead until obviously the fake punt mistake, but they did a good job, and Dallas became one-dimensional, and this defensive line got to eat, and they really got after him. And Chase Young had a really impactful game. Obviously, Sweat makes that big play there. I think Jonathan Allen was terrific, and everybody really defensively played well on this team in one way or another, and it was just really good all-around performance from that defense.
Well, I really think we're going to find out how good that defense is against the Steelers and the Seahawks coming up. We'll be back with you in a few more minutes. Scott, don't go away. Bruce Rader back with Brian Parsons, Nathan Epstein, Jake Seeley, and our Washington insider here, Scott Jackson. Scott, time for our weekly look at the playoff picture. I think we have to think that the team is going to have a tough time beating the Steelers and the Seahawks, but could beat the Panthers, the 49ers, and the Eagles. So what's your magic number for the playoffs?
I think if you get 3 out of these next 5, Bruce, I think 7-9 wins this division. comfortably. But I think, 6-10 might get you there. You got to at least get 2, but you might need some tie-break help and some scoreboard watching at that point. But I think 7-9 would definitely get you there. I think, the Eagles have shown that they're not going to get their act together. Dallas has got a lot of injuries to overcome, clearly. And, the Giants with the Daniel Jones setback and with a tough schedule down the stretch, it's going to be tough for them to get there. So I think if Washington could find a way to get to 7, I think they've got it.
We'll talk about this in the weeks to come, but all right, so let's say they lose to the Steelers, they lose to Seattle, and maybe they split those, next 3 games. They don't make the playoffs, but this is definitely something to build on, at least what we saw last week against Dallas.
Yeah, I think there's some parts. I mean, you talked about Gibson a lot during the show, and McLaurin's obviously only in his second year. Defensively, there's a lot of young players, and not only Chase Young and Sweat, but Jonathan Allen, Payne are still very young in their careers. So yeah, I mean there is a lot of young parts to this team. Certainly, there's some areas they need to shore up in. You look at the secondary, you probably need 2 linebackers, I would say, to starters. The offensive line, they've got to get that settled as well. But I do think you feel better about the wide receivers than you did going into the year. Even the tight end position, I think Logan Thomas has had some real high moments. So I think they feel good there. And the quarterback thing is going to be interesting because if you do make the playoffs, then you're drafting in obviously a much different position than you are if you don't. Now, if you don't make the playoffs, you're probably in a spot to take one of those quarterbacks, and then that's where it becomes interesting. What do you want to do there? Do you want to ride it out for another season with Dwayne Haskins and see if he improves the real offseason? You still got control over Kyle Allen as a first rights restricted free agent, and of course Alex Smith is the kind of the wild card here, whether or not he wants to play anymore, and if they want him to be part of the future still.
All right, Scott, your final thoughts on Monday's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, look, I think any hope we had of the Steelers being cocky and complacent, I think if you saw any of the post game after that Baltimore win, it felt like a loss. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger trashed their performance. Mike Tomlin did as well. They're going to get a good shot here from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's beat up, though. I mean, the Bud Dupree injury is huge. I think also the fact that, that is a quick turnaround. Washington's extra time to rest, maybe get some people back on the field. We'll see come Monday. But, I think it sets up fairly nicely for Washington. It might be tough on the other end when they're going to Arizona to play San Francisco, which sounds very confusing. But I think it sets up well for them to at least be competitive in this game. But it's a big-time measuring stick game because Pittsburgh has clearly been the class of the NFL to this point.